Arrhythmia by Joel Peckham. In memory, everything seems to happen to music. Tennessee Williams. Association is not a luxury, but one of the very conditions and prerogatives of freedom. Judith Butler. 1. There is a shyness and a wish in the song of tires on the interstate after rain, a consoling shh that settles like a hand on a shoulder, or fingers gliding through a child's hair, or the soft roll of cymbals fading at the end of the last torch ballad, an hour past last call, when everything is settling towards silence, still swelling and swollen with a promise it will come again. It will come again, I say, whispering. It is almost rhythm, almost pattern, illusory and pregnant, a shifting space between that hesitates with all the love and lust of a backline drummer on Bourbon Street. I have never been a man to rest in silences, and sometimes I struggle to listen, to wait, too in love with my own voice, shoving the silences away, as if trying to answer a question I was too afraid to ask my father, my first girlfriend, the homeless man who flashed my first wife, Susan, at a bus station in Omaha in 1998. Or maybe I have always been asking, just not waiting, hurrying away to the next appointment, the next class, stepping onto the next bus, away from the conversation, waving the words away through windows, half wondering at the silent shapes those mouths have made. 2. Yesterday, while stepping into the office, a cry cut the air, making me stop and turn, my hand still reaching for the door, foot caught mid-step. Behind me, only the avenue churning with engines and students weaving through them, and one old heavy woman in a long white coat pushing a wheeled chrome walking cage and leaning into it as if against a strong wind. I thought a crow maybe, or a child shouting through the back seat window for no reason at all except for being that child in that car, or maybe just to startle a preoccupied professor late for class. I almost turned again, then, ah-yee-ah, sharp and winged. The woman's head tilted up, her gray hair hanging straight and heavy as a model's emerging from blue water, her neck drawn lithe and taut, ah-yee-ah, the note bending on a long string, wavering. Then everything shifting back into that lumbering glide, as if nothing at all had happened, as if this happens all the time. It does. 3. For 1 year as a boy, I'd wake up screaming, or wake myself with my screaming, or my father, terrified, hair matted and wild with sleep, would grip a damp shoulder, shaking me until I stopped screaming. Not every night. Sometimes 5 days apart, then 10, 15, then back to 5 again. And once 3 nights running. It got so he couldn't fall asleep or would wake for no reason at all, wondering if he heard me in his dreams, wandering up the stairs to my room, listening. He doesn't remember any of this. I don't remember the dreams. 4. I fear most not the forgetting, but how it vanishes, erased, released, so we might better keep our grip on what and who we would believe we were and are, the way the mind replaces what we see and hear and sense, adding details, writing over thoughts until it is another thing entirely. When does the name of the child separate from the child, become the only child, only the child, the photograph replace the skin alive with heat? So much is story. Words replace the blinding blue of winter sky, the actual steam release of air brakes, bloom of breath, exhaust and bitterness of cigarettes, which is a taste, a touch, a sound embodied, and the body, a refracted image, broken into wholeness. 5. Reaching back, each thought of my father begins with music. Oldies 103 and winter trees blurring past us on 128, and cold vinyl seats. His warm baritone released in puffs as the Cavalier's engine worked to warm us, its wipers scraping frost as the heater growled and pulsed, and clear glass bloomed up from the dash in a bright blue inverse cloud melting at the edges. And we crooned with Elvis and Sinatra, my father's voice blending into the mix, matching tone and pitch as if it had all been engineered, and I'd come in high and piercing, off, voice crackling like wet saplings in a fire, and it was all fire and flashing windshields all around. 6. I do not know if my son screamed when the van struck the truck, when the glass shattered around him, when he was for an instant thrown to flight. I was asleep and back until I wasn't. I did not hear and can't stop hearing. I did not see and can't stop seeing, screaming, singing. 7. 10 steps and a cry again, then 5, then 15, and everyone looking away or down at their feet as she made her way past the student center and the purring SUVs and the CVS on 20th Street. And for the rest of the day, I found myself listening and waiting, wondering if I listened hard enough, could I hear it somewhere, back behind everything, behind the rumble of the air conditioners and the chatter in the hallways and my lecture on Tennessee Williams, and my voice speaking the words of Tennessee Williams, which are too brutally beautiful to have ever been. And I wrote them on the whiteboards and the chalkboards, waiting and staring at the spaces between them, listening in everything I heard and almost heard for the cry. And silence that isn't really, is only a hesitation under white noise that's really just a blurring of 1,000 pistons firing, 1,000 small explosions blazing fast and indistinct, and is all of us, and is always happening. 8. And maybe it is all the same song, same cry, sung or would be if we could be listeners, reaching down to the root of it, articulate, a shuddering with longing, and maybe it is not our work to remember this, and maybe the actual is ephemeral, and maybe that's its beauty, and ours is a different thing, the getting close while drifting back, the almost wave-like reaching of the sea, and maybe the best that we can say is yesterday I heard this cry, and I thought of my son, and it was like, 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 and it was a bird bursting out of shards of light, refracting stars over a desert into story, into memory transformed, shapeless, shapely, taking on the body and ballast, the ballet of a boy thrown free of his body. This is what listening means. Finding in the storm the harmony, the single tap of rain among the many rhythms, the molecule of hydrogen in silence beating like a heart among so many, which is to find the unheard, unuttered cry of one's own child in the eyes of a girl staring from a broken city, in a woman's unhinged wailing, in the body washed up on the beach a world away, as the waves pound sand to sand drawn to and from the sea.